So Oscar Piastri saw his championship deficit go from 1 point to 24 points. A pretty catastrophic weekend for him. And it started on Saturday, losing 8 points to Lando, 6 points compared to what he could have had. We have one of three big questions from the weekend straight away. What caused three drivers to spin out in the sprint? The puddle looked harmless. It didn't look harmless to me, harsh it. It looked pretty troublesome for a lot of drivers, and that is exactly what happened. It was the curbing on the exit of turn 3 that caused the drama. And we can see it on board with Oscar first of all. Come through turn 1, through turn 2, and then you want to squeeze on the gas as soon as possible. It's an important exit. He's chasing Kimi Antonelli just in front. And naturally in the wet, you stay off the curbs. It's what people will tell you. You learn in karting. They stay slippery. White lines and curbs, they hold the moisture, particularly in Brazil, where these ridges down here were collecting water in the gullies there. And we saw that throughout. So at some point, when it dries out, you want to start taking the curbs. That's the problem. If you stay off the curbs in the dry, you're going to be really slow. You can use them in the dry, you can't in the wet. There's a crossover at some moment. Now, the skill of the driver is to work out when that is, to go on without losing control of the car. Usually that means having a few moments, scaring yourself a little bit, but eventually finding the limit of grip. For Oscar here, he's going to go over it straight away on lap 6, but he's not going to be the only one to do it. We come through, and there he goes, onto the white line, onto the curb, and now you can just see the moisture as well here coming off that tyre. That's just grease, just moisture that's now in the way of his tyre and the asphalt or the curbing in this case, losing him grip. So as we're turning in now to the left-hand side, as soon as you have lateral load and you're accelerating and you take away a bit of that grip, you're so likely to spin the car. There's a lot of G going on. You've got a lot of power, high speed. The reactions are really difficult. And so for Oscar, fairly straight on the wheel, but as soon as he tries to apply a little bit of left-hand lock to get round this, 1,000 horsepower, high speed, minimal grip, he's going to lose control of the car. And that is what happens. Round he goes, almost holds it. It's almost a big save for him. He's on the lock stops for a long time, but in the end, it's just too much. And round he goes spinning. And it is literally that curb. He hadn't been on it so far through the day, but on lap 6 he did, and it was too much. Same applies to Nico Hülkenberg, further back, second car in this run of 3 to go off. Also gets out wide, well over the curbs here for Hulk. There's your splash. There's your gully as well in here where the water's collecting even more. So Hulk's through there. And on lap 6, he's not even the second driver to do it. Plenty have decided that lap 6 is their time to start running the curbs, getting the confidence in these damp conditions, starting to feel that they're going to push and find the limits as it's drying up. Colapinto's finding the limits in turn 1. What's not great for Franco here, and he's got away with this one, is the fact that there's a yellow flag now up here for the two cars that are already in the barriers. Franco's towards the back of the field, so the marshals have got time now to say, no, there's an incident, you've got to slow down and avoid having a collision. But it's tricky conditions, and Franco basically doesn't slow down enough. He doesn't take caution with the yellow flag as well. He really should be avoiding the curb in his case, but once again, we're out wide, we're onto the white line, we're over it, we're onto the curb, and Franco's going to lose it even earlier than some of the others. And that's because also he applies a lot of steering lock compared to the others, straight into the left-hander, thinking it's way drier than it is on that curb. So whilst Hülkenberg and Piastri end up over there, Colapinto is going to come off way earlier, and that's going to mean a bigger hit into the solid Armco rather than the Tech Pro further round. And that was a chassis change for Alpine. So the biggest whack of the lot was Colapinto. But it was tricky for everyone. I said Hülkenberg wasn't even the second driver to go over it. We had Piastri, we had Norris out front. I'll show you that in a minute. But we also have Max Verstappen doing the same. So loads of drivers are starting to push the limit on that. And then it's kind of a skill test. Can you keep it on the road? How much of the finer details do you do? How much are you into that gully? How much are you just on the white line? The millimeters matter, and your absolute level of skill matters as well. Your reactions, your car control. So if we watch Verstappen come through, he's also going to head over onto the curb, similar sort of zone to Piastri here, right towards the gully. There's your spray. And for Max now, it's a big slide. He's also on the lock stops. It's a massive moment for him, heart in mouth. He's almost going to be the first car to follow Oscar into the barriers, but he manages to control it. So for me, it's another example of Verstappen, great driving talent and skill, innate to keep himself going. So easy for the drivers to do that. 3 of them doing it on the same lap shows that it's not simply a dozy mistake. It's something that they're all pushing on the limit of. And you have to say it's a little bit unlucky in that regard. But nonetheless, there has to be something that decides between the best and those that are going to make the mistakes. Norris, as I said, was the first driver to go off. So he comes through turn 1. He's out front. Nice clear track ahead of him. He's also now exploring this curb for the first time. So the drivers will be finding curbs in safer places earlier on in the race. So you find it in the lower speed maybe. Just feel what that curb's like. This is one of the most treacherous. It's down the hill, so the water collects. It's a pretty steep incline from the top of the centre rest to the bottom. So, and it's also on a big traction zone. So you test what it's like on some of the less risky curbs first, and then on lap 6, they all decide that this is the chance. You see Lando right over the gully as well, and the little splash of water that probably makes life a little bit harder for those further back as well. So he's quite calm over the curb, starts applying more lock as he comes off it. It's a sensible approach. Look how straight the steering is for Lando here. Starts to turn in slightly, and then when we're off the curb, now does a little bit more of his turning. So he's limiting the risk there, and it's actually really not a moment for him. But yeah, on lap 6, it's a big drama. This is Piastri, just for the proof, in lap 5, comes through turn 1 on the limit of grip, down the hill, avoiding the curbs, and once again, avoiding that curb coming through the exit of turn 3. He's on the white line, but he's not over the curb. So pushing the limits on lap 6, and it's a 6-point loss for Oscar Piastri as a result.
Dipped a wheel on the white line of the curb, and around I went. So silly mistake really, or unfortunate mistake. So that's it.
From one big question and one big points loss to another for Oscar Piastri. Let's start with this one. Did Oscar really deserve the penalty? Well, this is for the Grand Prix now, and it's for the moment of the Grand Prix between Piastri, Antonelli, and Charles Leclerc, who was the most unlucky driver in this, having to retire the Ferrari. Comes from the safety car restart. Norris controls the pace, was really calm throughout the weekend, controlled pretty much every aspect of it, and he does well at the restart again. Antonelli here is on the soft tyre, so in theory should have the most rear grip to try and get some traction. In reality, he has a wheel spin as we get going, and that means he's straight away under pressure from Leclerc and from Piastri. We are 3 wide heading in towards the first corner. Leclerc pretty much neck and neck with Antonelli. Piastri coming in from a little bit further back at this point, but we're pretty well 3 wide. And then we're going to have the collision as we hit the brakes. Piastri's slightly the earlier on the brakes. Antonelli comes across, and he's going to wipe into Charles Leclerc, who's just desperately unlucky, having left lots of space. First of all, let's have a look at this on board with Kimi Antonelli and just show you exactly how it comes about. Because again, on the red soft tyres, this should be a chance for Antonelli to try and put pressure on Norris, but it's not a good restart at all. Lando with a weave and go, and Kimi just has to get off the gas because he's just lit up those rear tyres. So now we've got a problem. Checks the left mirror, sees Piastri. He knows Leclerc's there because he's literally alongside him on the right-hand side. And there's the proof. Charles, deep on the brakes, has the space to do that around the outside. So Kimi now is in a bit of a quandary. Car on the outside, car on the inside. On a restart, he's just lit up the tyres. He's not feeling like he's got the grip underneath him. And he just starts to turn in. And as we come through here, he's getting in towards now the same line as Lando ahead, heading towards an apex. But the problem is he's got a car there on the inside, which he should know about because he's checked the mirrors on the way in and he's had that lousy restart, and it's a pretty brightly painted car as well. But Antonelli keeps turning in. There's your contact. Big save from him, probably helped by the Ferrari hit as well. Unlucky for Leclerc, and Antonelli continues and he's going to get a reprieve with Piastri's penalty. Let's have a look at it from Oscar's point of view. So it's a double slipstream. First of all, Leclerc pulls to the outside, and now it's Antonelli that we can draft in behind. We're fairly well side by side coming into the corner. We've got loads of space to attack this. So for me, Oscar has to be going for this move. He's in the championship contention. Mercedes is quick. The Ferrari is an unknown at this stage, but Leclerc has shown in recent races he's very capable of getting the podium. So if you have a gilt-edged chance like this to overtake the two of them, you have to go for it. As a McLaren driver in the championship hunt that's actually been seeping those points. So he gets the chance. But at this point, he's a bit cautious on the brakes. He brakes at about 50 metres here. And it's kind of a sensible, not massively risk-taking point of view, actually, in a strange way. So he's gone for the inside, but at this point he brakes, and he could barrel in speed, but it would be so high risk. So he actually does the least risky thing, which is to brake on the early side. And now we've gone from being quite well alongside to losing that advantage as Antonelli brakes a bit later. So according to the FIA guidelines, Piastri has to have his front axle alongside at least the mirrors of the driver he's trying to overtake. to warrant the space at the apex. Now, he has to have that prior and to the apex point. So coming up towards the break point, he was there. He was alongside enough to have the space. The problem is by braking early, he's now allowing Antonelli to move ahead, and he doesn't keep alongside on the inside line. So as we see now, Antonelli's mirrors are ahead of Piastri's front axle. And that is what gives the stewards room to penalise Oscar. And that's what they're working towards, these guidelines, very rigidly. For me, it's not right. For me here, Oscar is being squeezed. He's slowing down because he's seeing he's being squeezed. He's actually being very sensible here. But because he's so far alongside on the way in, he's still alongside in the braking zone, he should have a right to space, according to all logic. But it seems to go out the window with these guidelines. Antonelli comes across, and Oscar now realises that, hey, he's heading for an apex here. I have to disappear. You can't disappear from this stage. Once you hit the brakes, you're pretty committed. You can't brake more because you're going to have this lockup. And that's exactly what he does. He's trying to avoid an incident here and still turning in, desperate to find a bit more grip to pretty much pin himself on that inside wall. He's not alongside the mirrors. That is technically the guidelines at this point. And Antonelli keeps turning in. There's clearly going to be no space. Antonelli's literally heading for an apex here. And there's the contact with Piastri into Antonelli, into Leclerc. According to the guidelines, you can see why the penalty was given. But for me, the guidelines are not correct in this stage of racing. We can see it once again here. Coming into the corner, Oscar's got himself so well up the inside here. They're pretty much three wide identically. Here, he gets his front axle up alongside the mirrors of Antonelli. So at this stage, he's okay. And then we get to this strange paradox right now. This is the point that Oscar hits the brakes and we start to lose that space. So what he should, in theory, do, according to the guidelines, is to release the brakes, barrel the speed in, and still be there at the apex. But by being cautious here, he's trying to avoid the incident. Ironically, if he guarantees the incident and keeps his car there on the inside, he will end up hitting Antonelli. I think Leclerc is going to be toast in any case here because he's unfortunately on the outside. So Oscar, by being cautious, has basically taken the blame. Whereas if he was aggressive, they'd be more likely to crash, but it would be less likely to be Oscar's fault, or it wouldn't be Oscar's fault. That's the strange thing with the way that the guidelines are working, and the stewards working rigidly to them. As we play it through, the space is gone. Oscar is under control here. I know he's having a lockup, but he's still able to turn the car. He's pinched to the apex. It's not like he's cannonballing off towards the outside line. That would be very different. At that point, you'd say, yeah, he's ambitious. He's coming in way too hot. But he is driving in a controlled manner, I believe. He's only locked up because he's losing the space and he's just thinking, please, I don't want to crash. I'm trying to do the right thing here. So for me, the guidelines aren't the correct method for this sort of incident. It's a safety car restart. It's tough racing. It's hard racing. I think Piastri had to go for the move. And I think this had to be a racing incident. You could say more on Antonelli's fault, actually, for turning in and cramping the space. But for Kimi as well, it is a tricky one because he's in the middle of a sandwich. He's got Leclerc on the outside, Piastri on the inside. Difficult to try and find your line. For me, the definition of a racing incident. Tough one for Oscar Piastri, and it completely derailed the rest of his race.
There was obviously a bit of a lock-up, but I couldn't go any further left than I already was. So, I can't really just disappear. So, tough afternoon.
To be fair, on the braking, Oscar was not fully alongside. And, the thing is, I was a bit in a difficult position because I had Oscar on the inside and Charles on the outside. So I tried, my best to give space to both. Just at the apex, I got hit and I ended up onto Charles, which, was a shame because I ended up, crashing with him and he had to retire and not what they wanted. But on my side, I was very lucky to keep going.
I do agree we have a rule book, and I think you've got to, the stewards are always trying to do their best to look at the rule book and to try and understand who is the one to blame. In this case, I really think Kimi knew and was aware that Oscar was on the inside. Yes, he was not side by side, which is the way it's written in the rule book, but you cannot really do a corner like nobody is in the inside if someone is on the inside, no matter how far he is. And so for me, it's a bit more of a 50-50 blame with Kimi and Oscar. I don't think Oscar deserved all the blame there, but anyway, that doesn't matter. For me, it's the end of the race, which is very frustrating.